kids now, in the school district here.
Cool, welcome, glad to have you with us. Yeah, our group changes in who's here from time to time, but good to have you with us. Yes, you'll catch on as we go, I guess. I don't have much of an intro to give you, but Margot's kind of giving you some kind of introduction maybe, and
Yes, I got, and Jeff kind of.
okay, wonderful. All right, you're well up to speed, I'm sure. All right, we ready for our special presentation?
We are.
Let's rock and roll. The
Would you
floor
like, I was gonna say, do you guys want to introduce yourself? You want me to introduce you or?
It doesn't matter, but saying let's rock and roll, I feel like I need like smoke and
Yeah.
all kinds of things. I don't know if I live up to that expectation.
We're not that exciting, don't worry.
Okay.
Let me
Well-
share my screen.
Okay.
So those who are,
It's okay if I go ahead and
you go right on.
launch in. All right. Well, thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Angie Garza. I'm the Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services at the Regional Office of Education. And I also have with me here today.
I'm Michelle Sanders, Family and Student Care Coordinator. That's new, so I'm stuck in it.
Yes, she's rehearsing that. And then we also have, Mackenzie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Nope, you got it.
Okay. This is Mackenzie Garza, and she is the caseworker, the Nexus Family Care Coordinator caseworker that's assigned to Dixon. So she does a lot of work with your families. And so we have a, do you want to say anything about Miss Tabitha who can be with us here today?
Yeah, so your attendance support specialist is Tabitha Behrens. She was not able to join us today, but she's taking care of all of your attendance support referrals, which is previously truancy, just a little bit less punitive this year.
What's amazing about Tabitha is she's an alumni from Dixon. She was Tabitha Justice, if that name rings a bell. So it's great to have someone who knows the community and people know her.
Yes. She's a wonderful addition to our team. So just to kind of set the context here for a moment, our attendance support services have gone through a complete rebrand in the last 2 years. And we've done that for a number of reasons. One is to be more responsive to what we're seeing in our communities, especially coming out of COVID, greater instances, and you'll see in a minute of mental health and students who are living in trauma. So we are taking a prevention focused approach to our services. And we are also operating under a tiered intervention system. And really, this is also as a result of the direction that the state of Illinois is headed when it comes to supporting students and family and increasing student attendance at school, whether that's due to truancy or whether that's due to chronic absenteeism. And we're going to see here in just a minute that chronic absenteeism is actually more concerning for us at this point in time than truancy is. Also, before we dig in, I want to let you know that we did have some materials here for you. So on the right-hand side, I gave you a copy of our attendance guide for this year. Every school district administrator, counselor, whoever attended our meetings received a copy of our attendance guide. We have a couple of tools that we're able to use with districts. It's called the SEEK tool. It's provided by Attendance Works. And then on the left-hand side of your folders, are all of our RAC cards, our information about our attendance programs, our Nexus program, as well as some of the materials that we're trying to put out. These are all brand new kind of references and resources for schools, students, and families this year as part of that prevention focused partnership approach that we're taking to increasing attendance for students. So I want to dig in for just a minute and kind of set the stage, because I know that attendance is a big concern. And so I want to let you know that you are not alone, and number one, and number two, this is a very complex problem. It's not one that has a simple, we're going to apply this treatment and then the issue will resolve itself. So it's really important for us to be able to understand what's happening in our communities in order to appropriately address it. So just a little bit of data here that I'm going to share with you. And we shared this also with all of our representatives, whether they be administrators, counselors, secretaries who came to our attendance support meeting at the beginning of the school year. So Attendance Works is a great resource that we've used a lot this year. And if we look at some of the information that Attendance Works has put out, I'm sorry, I'm sitting right in front of you, I'm so sorry. Half of the students who missed 2 to 4 days of school in September, that first that first full month of school will go on to miss nearly a month of school over the course of the school year. So we know that at the very onset of the school year, even at the very onset of a child's educational experience, it's very important to establish those healthy and positive attendance behaviors. So we know that there are significant repercussions as a result of not attending school on a regular basis. Obviously, one of those is loss of learning. And so we know that if a student falls too far behind, we're looking at retention. And some of us might not realize by the time a student is in sixth grade, it can be a leading indicator for dropouts. So that is actually one of the reports that we have to file with the state of Illinois every year. Actually, 2 times a year. We have to not only report the students that we work with on our truancy caseloads, but we also have to report dropout rates. And in our competitive applications for funding, we also have to talk about the need that's in our area. We're gonna look at just in here in just a moment, but our dropout rates are not looking critical for our area. Any student who drops out is concerning. But we've actually seen decreases and we've held fairly stable, fairly steady with our dropout rates here in Leopold and Whiteside counties. Where we're kind of seeing more of that concern is with that chronic absenteeism rate. So this is the number of schools that we serve and the number of children that we serve. So when we talk about the percentages here on the next couple of slides, keep in mind that we're talking about kind of that aggregate of over 20,000 students, okay? So there's a lot of data that we've been pulling. We have to do this for our reports. We have to do this for our applications, but we also pull this information so we can talk a little bit more succinctly about what's happening in our communities. And so there are some attendance patterns that we're seeing here in Leopold and Whiteside counties. So the data that you see here reflects chronic truancy. And what we're finding, as I mentioned before, is that truancy, which is unexcused absences from school, so students who miss 10% or more of the school year, who they don't have a valid excuse. Those are our truant students. And we haven't seen a whole lot of fluctuation with truancy since COVID. So while we're concerned about those students who are not attending school on a regular basis and they're just not coming, we are more concerned about what we're seeing with chronic absenteeism. So that I think should be the next slide. Okay, so here's where we're seeing some of those increases. So we have seen a steady increase. It's not kind of jumped astronomically, but it has been steadily rising from 2021 to 2023 by about 2%. This is pretty on par, the 17.5, I think it's a little bit under what we're seeing right now statewide. But statewide, we're also seeing concerns about chronic absenteeism. Now, chronic absenteeism is different than chronic truancy. Chronic absenteeism is absence and it's with an excuse or without an excuse. So it's an aggregate of all those days. So if a student is genuinely sick and they have a doctor's note, that's an absence. It's an excused absence, but it still counts towards this chronic absenteeism rate. If they go on vacation, oftentimes that's there's a little discretion sometimes in different districts involved with students who are not in attendance because they're going on vacation. We have a lot of students who go to Mexico, for example. They go back home. There might be migrant families. We have a lot of students who are using those mental health days that have been provided to them. So regardless of the reason for the absence, every absence counts towards this chronic absenteeism rate. And so this is something that we're keeping a close eye on, because if a student is chronically absent and they come to you with a doctor's note, we can't accept that as part of a truancy referral, right? So it really relies on other systems and educational kinds of considerations for us to address that problem within our school communities. And we'll talk about some of those, what some of that might look like here a little bit later. So a little bit more information. We do a lot of different kinds of work in our office. We do a lot of work with social emotional learning. We do a lot with our homeless students. And this was data that we pulled last year. We estimated, there were some surveys from Tri-County and from some other organizations. We have a community partnership group that meets quarterly. We kind of talk about some of this data. We estimated over 6,000 students were really in our 3-county area, and I suspect that it is greater than that. We're really trying to grapple with some kind of social, emotional, or trauma-related issue. 45% of our students come from low-income households, and last year, I think we had over 300 students who were identified as homeless. And homeless is different from just living out on the streets. It's not having fixed adequate housing. So if they're living in a situation where they don't have heat, or if they're an unaccompanied youth, all of those are examples of homelessness that we're seeing with our students and our families. As far as substance abuse goes, we looked and we continue to look at Illinois youth survey data that's administered by the University of Illinois every 2 years. We didn't have data from 2024 from Lee County. So for comparative purposes, I kept it to 2022. But we can see that we have high instances or moderately high instances of students who are self-reporting that they are engaging in substance abuse. And we know that this can oftentimes be correlated to trauma or wanting to escape. And so a lot of students we find who are struggling with substance abuse also have trouble coming to school. This is also from the Illinois Youth Survey data. We have about 15% of 10th through 12th grade students in Lee County who have reported bullying within the past 12 months. Granted, this is 2022 because we didn't have that 2024 data. An average of 23% of those 8th through 12th grade students across all 3 counties are self-reporting that bullying is occurring on some sort of social media platform. And the difference between that in-person bullying that we might have experienced when we were in school and the bullying on social media is that social media bullying is persistent and pervasive. It's very hard to escape those situations for students, which may have impact their feelings of self-worth, their trauma, their social emotional development. So those are factors that we consider when we're looking at why students may or may not be coming to school. We also know that we have a lot of conversations, especially I always like to say that COVID didn't bring on anxiety, trauma, and depression, but what it did is it shone a light on that in our communities. And so when we think about this idea of anxiety, and I speak from the heart on this one, I have a child who, when he was in school, had a severe amount of anxiety, and it was sometimes a struggle getting him to go to school because of that anxiety. But anxiety and depression, whether it's because we're destigmatizing it or talking about it more, or people are self-identifying, or maybe just because of our society and culture, we're seeing more instances of this. 64%, we did a survey of our 3-county communities, 64% of the adults who responded to our survey indicated that they are really truly seeking help to try to find ways to better support their children in dealing with those feelings of anxiety or depression. And so that's why you see a lot of opportunities for families coming out of our office to learn more about that, to support their children, and having family engagement opportunities where we can kind of model some of those behaviors between parent and child. So we have a lot of concerns in this area, and we again have to think about how is that related to the attendance patterns that we're seeing. The most recent communication that we sent out for districts to use was all about, do I send my child to school when they're feeling ill? And there's a little disclaimer on there. One is about, if you think you have COVID symptoms, please contact your health professional. But the other one on there is a reminder that oftentimes when we have the kiddo who comes to school and has to go home because of the tummy ache, or if they're not feeling well in the morning, it may be because they're ill, but it may also because that is symptomatic of some of those feelings of anxiousness. And so we have to, if there are those patterns that are happening, we need to be mindful of that and come together as a school community and with our parents and really kind of talk about what's going on. One of the other things that I'm really proud to say that we've done is we've done a lot of student focus groups over the last 3 or 4 years. And I've had the pleasure of talking with students from 4th grade all the way through 12th grade. And just having conversations with them. And one of the big standout pieces that they communicated to me in our focus group findings was that they felt a sense of disconnect with their school community. Whether that's because they didn't have a relationship with a peer or an adult within that school community, or whether that's because they didn't feel like the curriculum assessment and instruction that they were experiencing was relevant to them or engaging. And I'm doing a lot of research right now and a lot of writing. And I found this one this weekend and I thought it was really relevant to kind of include as a point. There was a poll that was taken. It's a Voices of Gen Z study that was sponsored by Gallup and the Walton Family Foundation. And their findings indicated that the largest drops in student attendance or engagement occurred because students didn't feel like they were interested in or challenged by what they were learning. So our classroom environment and the expectations that we have for students also play a role in why students may or may not go to school. Okay, finally, this is the last piece I want to share with you, and then I want to talk a little bit about how we're providing services and the approach we're taking this year. We have a wonderful community partnership here. Any one of you in this room is invited to attend. Margot comes and we have great conversations we have chambers of commerce represented, we have higher ed represented, we have our K-12 educational systems represented, we have our service providers represented. So we have the food pantry there, we have Sinisippi, LSSI, Florissa, the YWCA. All of our organizations in our 3-county area come together on a quarterly basis. And we talk about what we're seeing in our communities. And last year, when we were doing a lot of in-depth conversations and trying to pinpoint how we want to talk about our communities and what our needs are when it comes to social determinants of health and mental health in particular, we came up with 3 statements that we would like to see improve in our communities. One was that we don't have a lot of prevention-focused services. Oftentimes, we wait until it gets to a certain point with students, whether that's because of medical, mental health, attendance. We wait till we get to a certain point and they're like, oh my goodness, they need help. And our systems are flooded. And so can we be more prevention-focused? And what does that look like? The second thing that we found out and we determined and created a statement around was the fact that there's wonderful resources out here in our communities, incredible resources, but parents don't know how to find those resources and they're not aware of what's available to them and maybe what restrictions might be part of certain services or different funding streams. And the third thing was that while we have a lot of great programming and services for birth to 3 and for our early childhood kiddos, by the time a student is in middle school or high school, a lot of those services drop off and a lot of those partnerships drop off. And so how can we do a better job of supporting our adolescents, especially as they're transitioning to more independence, they're transitioning to the work world, they're transitioning to post-secondary endeavors, and what does that look like? So I'm gonna pause here because that was a lot. Anything you have questions on or that stood out to you? I went really fast, yes.
Not a question, but there's a lot of good information. Is it something that you could share with Margot that we could get your slides?
Oh, yeah,
for this?
she has them and
Okay.
I'm happy to share.
That would be
Yes.
great. That would be helpful. And unless I missed it, what is considered chronic? What's the threshold for chronic absenteeism?
Do you wanna talk about chronic absenteeism?
Or were you already?
So a student has a certain number of days that they can kind of technically miss. They have, what is it now, 10?
10%.
10%.
More than 18 in a school year
Yes.
is considered chronically absent.
I see. So if you go over that.
Yep.
then-
And even like
yes.
right, however many days you've had now, if you've missed 10%, you're chronically
And
absent.
it's both excused and
Yes,
unexcused.
yes.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. They think it's just the one where they skip school or parents didn't call them off or whatever it may be, it's either one, because your 5 mental health days are considered excused.
So regardless of the reason, when we talk about chronic absenteeism, it just means the child is not in attendance. And so when we kind of start looking at those rates, we have to ask ourselves, are there reasons for that? Because there's some problem solving that we need to do internally as a district, because when we get to some of those other services, like we typically, we take families who are struggling and chronically absent in our Nexus program, and that's a program that we created. But in the state of Illinois, services are typically not provided until we get to that point where they're not showing up and there's no valid cause. And by then, oftentimes, we've already established those bad attendance patterns, and it becomes a little bit more challenging to remediate those, not impossible, but we want to be able to address all of those absences and all of those reasons as a system.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of our services. Our department, I like spaghetti, and I know this sounds weird, but that's how I view our work. It's like this big plate of spaghetti with noodles and sauce and meatballs rolling everywhere. But the point of it is that it's all interconnected. You can't just pick up one noodle, right? So a few years ago, our attendance director left the office to move out of state. And so we already had our Nexus program going, and I was very passionate about the fact that we needed a continuum of care. And so we actually absorbed that department. And in our first year, which was last year of kind of retooling and rebranding, we made some changes. And this year, we kind of put those changes on steroids. And so the reason for that is because all of this, the truancy, the student attendance support services that we provide through our office are funded through competitive funds through the Illinois State Board of Education. So we write, and we're competing with other entities across the state to be able to provide those services, and we have to demonstrate need. And so some of this is bound in philosophy and what we believe as an office and an organization about spaghetti. And some of that is in relation to the parameters that are put out by our RFP, our request for proposals, as we engage in that competitive grant cycle. So here's kind of how we are approaching things this year. I always like to talk about the parable of the stream, and just in a nutshell, this story is about a village located by a stream, and children keep falling into the water, and everybody's like, what is happening? I don't know, let's go pull the children out of the stream. And so everybody is all hands on deck, they're exhausted, they work morning, noon, and night to pull these students out of the stream, until one person goes upstream and finds out that there's a part of the bridge that has rotted out and children are falling through, so he fixes the bridge. And so children stop falling through the stream, but that individual, when he comes back to the community, is criticized for leaving the efforts to pull the kids out of the stream. He said, well, I just went up and I fixed the bridge. And so sometimes we get so ensconced in pulling kids out of the water, and we're exhausted, and we've used all of our resources, and we don't take the time to step away and move upstream and take a look at the reasons for why kids are falling through in the first place, because oftentimes it's easier to fix that and benefit the entire community. So that is the approach that we are taking with our services. And this is the approach that we are trying to work with districts to instill in their systems. So I'll tell you a little bit more about all of that. This system, or these systems, are oftentimes referred to as multi-tiered systems of support. This is different than RTI. You might have heard that in our educational communities. RTI waits, it's kind of reactive in nature, whereas in a multi-tiered systems approach, we're really operating with a prevention focused lens. And I have a little graphic on our next slide, that kind of shows us that. So these are all the things that we talk about under this idea of multi-tiered systems, this prevention focus. So we talk about access, we talk about training teachers, we talk about behaviors and interventions, we talk about how our teams and our communities and our families are partnering with one another. These are all components that we're trying to work towards, and our office is trying to help support all of our communities with. And so we're engaged in some of these questions that maybe you all in your conversations in thinking about attendance have also asked yourself. So what do we value? How are we working towards improving outcomes, whether it's attendance, academic or otherwise for all students? How can we be prevention focused? How can we work in a systems like fashion? And how are we working actively to build some capacity? So these are the questions we're asking this year and we're really kind of pressing on.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So this is another way of viewing it. These are all the things we have to think of. Remember I said attendance is a complex problem. When we have complex problems, we've got to think about all these things as a community. We've got to think about, well, what are our policies? How are we engaging families? What is our culture like? What partnerships do we have in place? So we start to kind of unpack all of this and think intentionally about what the problem is and how we can pull all of these moving parts, all the spaghetti together to come up with the best solutions to move forward and impact change. So again, we're not waiting. While we know we have those students who are going to persist in struggling and who have barriers that need to be addressed, we're going to address that, but we also want to make sure that we are being prevention focused. In a good system, we've got a good distribution where 80% of those kids are successful in the core without any other supports or services. So 80% of our kids should be attending with no issues, right? 15% are gonna need a little bit more support, and then we should be having a very small percentage of our students, 3 to 5%, who really need those intensive supports, the intensive attendance, case management that our department provides. So this is from Attendance Works. This is how they encourage school communities to be thinking about this. We should be having these foundational supports for students, and we'll take a minute, in just a minute and look at that. Tier 1, so this is a prevention focus. Tier 2 is early intervention for students who might be missing that 10 to 19%, and that's a lot. 10 to 19% of any school year, that's a lot of days. So what are we doing at Tier 2 and then Tier 3? So this is again from Attendance Work. It doesn't necessarily align. This is absenteeism, period. It doesn't have anything to do with truancy. So how are we kind of thinking about that? So we have our school-wide prevention and foundational supports that we can provide to all of our students. Those are things like laundry at school, sending out parent communications, doing parent education nights, family child caregiver interaction events. Having SOC has a food pantry. When you go and is it still in the little cart?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so food pantries. We have some schools in the Peoria area who have entire closets full of clothes and toiletries and all kinds of things that students and families can kind of come in and circulate and get. That is a district level decision as to whether or not that is a universal support. But those are some examples. The Attendance Works came out with an attendance playbook right around COVID time that has a lot of really great strategies for addressing student absenteeism at the Tier 1 level for all of our students. So there's some other examples here. Telehealth, a lot of districts qualify for free breakfast and free lunch for all students, making sure that our instruction is culturally relevant and responsive. The list goes on, and those are things that you can kind of be self-reflective of as a community. When we see that there's problems, there's issues, we've got a large percentage of our students who are not coming to school, we have to take a step back and take a look at our practices. Oftentimes we tend to go to it's a kid issue or it's a parent issue, but if we are seeing the large percentages of students who aren't attending, it oftentimes is a systems issue or a cultural issue or a community issue. And so that's why you are all here, is to kind of come together and talk about what can we do, what is the cause for maybe some of our students not attending school, and what can we do about it. So tier 2 interventions, I mentioned those. Nexus from our office is a great intervention for students. It's not tied to truancy. Oftentimes we find that families are facing barriers to a nice, healthy, regulated home environment. They might have barriers to transportation. They might be homeless. These are things that our office helps with through that Nexus program. We also have a wonderful Iris platform that can be used as a referral system to make referrals to community agencies to also help with some of those barriers and challenges. So here are some of the reasons why students might not be coming to school. Maybe parents don't understand that school is important. Maybe the caregivers have had a negative experience with the school system or another school system. Maybe there's housing and food insecurity. So there's all kinds of reasons. So at that tier 2 level, when we're talking about kids and families, we want to make sure that we're intentionally thinking about what is the reason why they are not able to attend, and then be able to apply a proper treatment. Kind of like going to the doctor's office. And the doctor is going to diagnose what the issue is, if you have a sore throat or a fever or a stomach ache, and then applying the appropriate treatment or prescribing the appropriate medication. So this is that illustration of what we can do and how we can be a little bit targeted with what we're doing to address some of those student issues for attendance. So if they're not getting food, if they have chronic health conditions, or if they don't feel like if they feel like they don't belong, these are some things that we could kind of come together and talk about. The important thing is as a community, do we have these resources available? If we don't have them right here in our buildings, who can we partner with? Who can we talk to? Can we have LSSI come in? Can they come in more? Are we able to partner with the food bank? Pam Martinez of Sauk Valley Food Bank is wonderful to work with. So there's a lot of resources that are out there, and this is where that intentional pairing comes into play. And so many of our schools are now working through this kind of matrix. So what are all of the reasons why perhaps students have barriers to coming to school, and what are some of those things that we have available to students, and just kind of mapping it out. We find that a lot of our schools have really wonderful things in place. And sometimes they find, oh, we've got a hole here. Or maybe we're underutilizing this service. And so then they can have some more intentional conversations around that. Right. So I want to kind of wrap up with just telling you a little bit about what we do at our office. We kind of take this tiered approach, and this is kind of where our Nexus, as I mentioned, our Nexus program comes into play. This is where our attendance support system comes into play. We have great core services that are available to you as a community that we're so proud of, ranging from training for teachers on academics and social emotional learning, trauma. We have family engagement, we have family newsletters, we have parent. I think Grace is doing, or maybe she just finished up the, oh my gosh, what was the last one? She had Jamie Taylor come in and doing understanding behaviors. And so we had like 40 or 50 families sign up. It was pretty incredible. We have an IESC network, working with families and teachers for our children with disabilities. We have our community systems navigator, Amy Howard, who manages our Iris program. And hot off the presses, we are also now in the business of preschool. So we are opening up 4 full-day preschool programs here in Dixon. That are going to deal with is wrong. That's wrong, Angie, wrong. Serve. Oh, man, that are going to, those 4 classrooms are going to serve our most at-risk students in the community and work on addressing some of those barriers at a very young age. So we can set up those academic attendance, social emotional development kinds of habits very early, as well as establishing those parent.
Where are those going?
Yeah, where is that?
We are going to have 2 classrooms at Open Sesame, and we will have 2 classrooms at the brand new YMCA Child Development Center.
Excellent.
Preschool for all.
So we will be able to serve 80 children at those 2 facilities. So we're super excited.
When do those
about that.
open? Is it gonna be?
We're hoping January.
Okay.
And on average, our like pre-K for all, we have anywhere at any time between 30 and 60 kids on a waiting list.
Yes, and so
So that's awesome.
yes, we'll be able to open up slots and provide those services for,
And
For
it's this
families.
extended day.
this is full day.
Yeah, full day.
With wraparound services. We're going to
That's
have
awesome.
infant youth mental health specialist. We're going to be having a family educator. We have 4 certified teachers, teaching assistants. They're going to be able to get, dental, medical, those services on site. So really exciting for this community, and we're very happy.
If you wanna co-op on parent nights,
We would love that.
we can open up our gyms,
We would love that.
that's co-op.
Okay, we'll do it. Our tier 2 services are our Nexus program that really works with the families. Our families set goals, so Mackenzie will go in and she'll meet with the families. They'll set some goals, whether that's stabilizing a place to live, addressing food insecurity, helping to find jobs. Sometimes it's clothing, any other kinds of supports that you would.
A lot of counseling services are requested, not just within, partnerships that we have at the office and through Iris, but partnerships within the community. Like I had one family that was interested in Roots and Wings for therapy, they do art therapy, so there's just a variety of family needs.
Okay. So again, Nexus is not tied to truancy. It can be any concern. They don't even have to demonstrate absence from school. It's anyone that our counselors and administrators, our school personnel are concerned with.
If attendance is an issue and they might not, like, so at Washington, you have to be 6 to be referred for truancy services. If there's a concern before that, or even before they hit that, qualifications for truancy, can we refer them on to Nexus, or is that not really? Do you know what I mean?
I do. Michelle, do you want to take that?
I would say if a child, a student before the age of 6 is having some issues, it's probably not necessarily only with the child. There's probably
Yes,
something more going on as
exactly,
well.
yeah.
So those would be perfect referrals to the Nexus program, so long as we can get consent to.
Yeah,
with
of course.
from the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So we're very proud of that program. Not every region has that, so. Thank you for partnering with us on that. And here's some of the services that we offer as part of our attendance program. So we offer mentoring to those students. We do have a very robust now attendance monitoring system. We've added some new things for this year. So we've added work-based learning, soft skills badging, career exploration, and credit recovery to our menu of services. Every student who is referred for truancy has what we call an IOEP. So it's kind of like an IEP, but it's for attendance. So we're going to go through and identify the reasons why the student is not coming to school. And then we select some of those strategies to help remediate that. So the others are services that we've offered in the past. One thing just really quickly for you to know is that a lot of times we've addressed truancy with kind of this punitive threat of going to court. There's not, truancy is, Michelle will tell you, a status offense. And in our 3 counties, there really isn't an appetite for that. So parents might get community service hours or something of that nature, but we can't fine parents, we can't put them in jail. We're not doing that. So what we have to do is we have to continue to work with those families and students earlier so that we're not getting to that point. And having some really robust tools in our pocket to be able to help those students and those families be successful. This is a little bit about our attendance tracking program, but I'm gonna stop there. Again, I spoke really fast because I know we're short on time, but I wanted to ask what questions you might have for not just me, but us.
I am aware of time. We're planning to be done at 4:30. It's 4:15 already. I'm shocked. This is a ton of stuff.
It is. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
One thing that I think to boil it down is, I think you know what we are. We're the Community Engagement Committee, and we've tasked ourselves this year with looking at attendance and the attendance issue over these. And we don't know if doing research to provide information to students or educating families or trying to find interventions or whatever. We kind of talked in our first meeting about that. We brought you in. So from your perspective, to a group like us, what advice would you give us as to how we can best utilize our time in making a dent? I mean, not necessarily today, but as you said, prevention is a
Yeah.
huge thing, and making a dent in the long-term problem.
That is a super question. So I have a few, and these are all personal opinions.
That's what we're looking for.
One of the things I would encourage, if you haven't done it already, is partnership mapping. So
What is that?
So that is taking a look at all of the partnerships that you have within the district and taking a look at what needs are being met with those partnerships and what needs are not being met with those partnerships. So if you have a lot of LSSI and Mississippi, and you've got a lot of counseling services that are pushing in and made available to families and for students here in district, maybe that's a strength. But likewise, maybe you find that you have a lot of students who have food insecurity and you don't have access to a pantry. And so maybe that is a partnership that you need to work on making a little more robust. So that partnership mapping, I think, is a really powerful activity to take a look at all of your connections within the district. I think that image that I showed you with the pyramid and the little squares, as far as what are some things that this district, this community has to offer in all of those different areas that might be potentially barriers to student attendance to all, some, and few. I think that's great. I think it would highlight maybe where some gaps are in partnership with that relationship mapping. That would be pretty powerful. And then I think the other thing that I would recommend is I would talk to your students and your families, whether that's through, I know surveys are always hard because you don't get the response rate that you want. But I've had a lot of success in, it's hard for people to turn you down when you're like, could you come in and have a conversation with us? We're gonna get breakfast, we're gonna have donuts and fruit in the morning, and we want to come and we just want you to talk. We're gonna ask you a question, and we're just going to listen. And people can take notes. Kind of some of those focus groups, that qualitative data is, I think, really pretty powerful. And tells you even more than maybe what a survey might tell you. And you can get a nice subset of your population. So you can talk to students, you can talk to parents, you can even talk to business members. How connected do they feel? If you put them on your partnership map, and you're like, yes, this is a great partnership. And then you go and talk to them, they're like, yeah, no, not really. That is very telling. So those are like three very kind of real, concrete, powerful things that you could probably move forward on that is going to tell you a lot about the assets and the resources that you have available to you and maybe help you to better diagnose what the problem is that you're seeing with regards to attendance. And so then therefore you can better appropriate solutions to that. Does that make sense?
Mostly, I'm a little bit of an idiot here, because I only heard two and I heard you say three, and I don't want to miss one.
No. Okay, relationship mapping, the
Got it.
pyramid, the focus group conversations.
Pyramid. Okay, and say a little bit more about the pyramid again.
There was an image that I
Yep.
put up
Yep,
there
yep.
and it had the grid with the triangle behind it.
Thanks, Margot. Ah,
Yay. So this is a really great activity just to go in. So this is what you do for all of your students.
Yep.
Use some and a few of your students. And what's available, where do you have holes, what are strengths?
so last year, the project of this committee was creating an inventory of social emotional resources that exist in the district and in the community in general. So that may be a nice tie-in, and it's kind of what this is, but maybe not in a slightly different way.
Sure, and it might include different services, but taking that, I would challenge you to take that a step further, because remember, our data showed us that our parents are telling us and our families are telling us, we have wonderful resources out there. I have no idea how to get to them. So that's only the first half of the conversation, because we have to do our due diligence in providing that parent education and that having that awareness. even with the volume of things that we push out to our community, we still have people saying, I don't know where to go.
Exactly.
So,
We've taken the step to put it on our website, put a link at the top of the website and
Yeah.
these sorts of, and we had the conversation, how can we
Yes.
educate, exactly that, how can you educate?
Yeah.
How can you get the information into the brains of the people we're trying to get it to?
right.
And yeah, I'm sure you do the same thing, and it's a challenge.
We do, and I will tell you, I have a great deal of empathy for those families, because when if you imagine you don't know how to swim and you're in the deep end and somebody throws you an anchor and you're like, great, I'm here to help. You're gonna just continue to drown, so, it takes those relationships and it takes time to do that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So a number of other questions are coming to mind that we just don't have time for right now. Are you guys available in an ongoing conversation sort of sense about?
I could even patch you through with a, you know, a Zoom link or something.
Sure. Absolutely, this is what we're here for,
Okay.
you know? This is our passion, this is what we
Beautiful.
love,
Wonderful. It sounds like we've made a good partnership.
yeah.
Other, I don't want to monopolize this, other questions and.
Do you have a question?
What do you do if a family is not very receptive to the services that are being offered to them?
We do get that. And that is a lot of relationship and trust building. I don't know if Mackenzie or Michelle wants to speak to that.
Oh, okay. So when we get referred these families, it's completely optional. So I reach out and I say, here are these services, I'm here to help you. And it might feel so much, so big, and they're not ready. So that's okay. I can be here for you when you are ready, or we can come to you when you are ready. But sometimes they're just not there yet, and that's okay. But in the meantime, that's when I can just build that relationship. And maybe when we get to that point, then they are ready, and then we can take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. Sometimes there are instances where they're just not wanting anything at all to do with me, or what I have to offer, and that's okay too. Maybe down the line or in the future, they will be, but in that moment, they're not. And that's kind of where we're at a standstill, so that's the hard part. That's the tough part, where I'm like, I can help you, I'm here, you know, I care about you, but if they're not there yet, then they're not there yet.
Do you keep reaching out, just saying, hey, it's Mackenzie, just reminding you I'm
There-
still here, if
yeah.
you need me,
Yeah,
here's the number, or like even do you mail them stuff,
all of the above.
all of the above.
They do
Any way
home
you can try to
visits.
make that connection.
Home visits, emailing, calling, texting, letters in the mail. That's if they are okay with me working with them, even though we're not doing anything. But if they're like, I'm not comfortable with this, I don't want to talk to you, or I don't want to do this, then that's where I have to respect that and respect their boundaries, and then I can't work with them. But if they're like, I don't have anything, or I'm not there yet, but we can still talk, then that's okay, and I still reach out to them.
It seems like a very large thing for us to, not that we shouldn't tackle it, I'm just saying this is, and I'm wondering if, you know, how we like to have our little projects yearly wrapped up. I'm wondering if this is one that's not gonna be wrapped up in a year, that we
No.
need some time to think through it and realize it's going to go on, especially in that we meet every other month, so we're talking January, March, May.
Yeah.
You know, so if you kind of look at it from that viewpoint, that we don't have to feel the pressure, obviously we want to come up with ideas and actually have some actionable things that we can do, but if we don't feel we have to have that pressure of let's solve this in 3 meetings and, you know.
Can I give you some permission here? I work with a district. We spent a whole year studying the attendance problem.
Mhm.
They then developed a 5-year plan to address it. 5 years. It gave them that space and grace, knowing that it's a complex problem, knowing that they have community partners to engage and re-engage, that they had parent education and culture to kind of shift. So it is not an overnight fix, and I would never expect that it would be. So give yourselves that grace to do that thoughtful, intentional work, and give yourselves time to implement.
Because to me, it's an important enough thing that
Yeah.
we can take our time and
We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, and it won't happen in three meetings.
No, right, agreed.
Well, I would love to let you talk all day. We've got
No,
five- Yeah.
I took a lot of your time, I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much for
for-
coming
yes.
and sharing all this with us.
Yes,
I-
absolutely.
we-
Yes.
Well, thanks for packing it all in.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to help. I want you all to know that as well. We're here as a service and a support, and we appreciate your partnership and all that you do for your community, and we're just excited about the future. So, thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, in our final 5 minutes.
Let's wrap it up.
If anybody's gotta go at 4:30, you gotta go at 4:30 and do your thing, and, we'll continue here. So the next question, of course, is what next? We heard great ideas about things we could spend our time on, this partnership mapping, working, building the pyramid, doing some kind of focus groups, talking to students and families. I really like this idea of also taking a year to study the problem. We're almost that kind of group who is here. We like to do research, we like to investigate and try to learn about things. Ideas around that, does any of these sound like a better idea, worse idea than anybody, and jump out at you say, gee, we really need to tackle that or whatever? Ways to approach this?
I feel like for me, I need to digest and think about it for a while.
Okay.
And not trying to push it off, but along with that,
sure.
is there a way we can gather input from the group to see whether certain things jumped out at people or?
Yep. Let's see. Let's take a while.
So we've started a little bit of the partnership mapping. And I'm gonna go back to where we ended last year and the resources that we have on our website. More of what's on our website are resources for our communities, saying if I don't know where to go, here are folks I can call about getting counseling for my child, my family, whatever. I'm wondering if we don't, just thinking out loud, that partnership mapping, who do we know? Like a lot of people don't realize Mississippi Centers are in all 5 of our buildings. So kids don't have to be taken out to go to their counseling appointments. They come in and they do it right on site. We have buddy bags for food insecurities. We have so many amazing resources that support us, support our kids, support our families. I'm wondering if we don't want to just start, gathering some of those things to, again, make sure that our families know about it, make sure everybody knows about it. So if somebody comes to you as board members, you can say, I've got some resources that I can, I've got a family struggling, or any of you who know parents or friends, to do that. I'm wondering if that's some things, because we've already started getting some of those lists, so we can go look then.
Yep.
And partnership map. Because one of the first things I was thinking of is we're sitting here, and I know SOC does this. SOC does a parent fair where they can connect with all of the resources that are in our communities. And they do this because our pre-K for all goes out there, and all the different pre-Ks, so parents know where to get quality programming for kids who aren't in school yet. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, wouldn't that be great? Well, maybe that's a byproduct of some of our programming. Program mapping just kind of popped into my head. Maybe that's one of those long-term goals.
Yeah. I've never heard the term partnership mapping before today, so it seems like maybe we can steal some templates or something in a later conversation of what that might look like and what it might be effective. I like the research idea as well, about taking some time to understand the problem. Focus groups are a way to do that, understanding, just listening to people, getting this qualitative information. One thing that is striking me though is that perhaps every other month of us meeting is not enough.
Yeah.
For a long time, we met every month, and for some reason last year, we switched to every other month. I was a big fan of less meetings in the world, but I don't know, in this moment, I'm feeling excited that we've got something to sink our teeth into, and, how do people feel about that? Maybe meeting again next month as opposed to, is it November? It is November. As opposed to waiting until next year, meeting again in December to continue the conversation. General thumbs up? Okay, cool.
Do we want to shoot for the Tuesday before the board meeting, which I think is 20th of
Perfect.
December? Am I on or around there?
Generally a good way to do that.
I am looking.
It's the 18th.
It's the
17th.
18th.
So it'd be the 17th.
Yeah,
Let me
that
just
sounds
take
about
a
right.
quick gander, and 17th, I have Desktop PRC that night.
And that's something we can also do.
Yep,
I was thinking we could take time offline to send an email to schedule that, or try to knock something out now. Are you saying that 17th does not work for you, Margot?
No.
You're not saying that.
I'm saying that it does not
You are
work.
saying that.
I will just tell you that I just looked the week before on
Yep.
Tuesday, trying to keep on a Tuesday,
Tuesday the 10th.
Tuesday, December 10th right now. Not a meeting.
All right, let's put one on there.
Yeah, she goes, it never happens, so let's. put it in.
Confidential.
Tuesday,
So does that work generally for people Thursday, Tuesday the 10th? Cool. Same bat time, same bat channel.
is there anything you want me to grab for data per se to have there?
So what I think we ought to do is pick the brains of the people who are so kindly still listening to us talking, and sending them a few ideas. Like I've jotted down some notes here about what does this exactly mean and how can we approach some of these things? What is a partnership map? What are you seeing other people are doing? This district that took a year to study, what did they study? What questions did they ask and all that stuff? Not to have that conversation now, but to gather some information to, go ahead.
Can I maybe send them an invite for the 10th, and we'd love to have you on site, but if it's easier, in Sterling, and then maybe we can get some of those questions answered for the group. Because we have a number missing tonight for a variety of other extra activities, and it will hopefully get everybody then on the same page. Okay,
And maybe I'd
perfect.
love to get some of the information ahead of time, get it to the group, to share it internally, and then we can digest and then use that meeting session to get some actionable plan together, because we can do some.
So next meeting is more, again, gathering more information and trying to focus maybe what's next?
Yep.
Is that what you're thinking? Or how are you framing it? I mean, are we?
At some point, we need to stop asking the questions about what should we do and actually start doing the things.
Exactly.
I feel like we keep backing up and saying, whoa, this is bigger than we thought. This is not a.
Well, as I was looking at that, the map or the grid that you had up there, I was thinking maybe the goal would be for us, a small goal, bite size.
Mhm.
What's one thing
Yes,
that
exactly.
we can do, right? What's the most prevalent reason that, and I don't know if there is an answer to that, prevalent reasons that we see children not in school? And can we do anything to help that?
Yeah. The truth is, we don't know the answer to that question of what is the most prevalent reason until, but you did gather some data, and that was on our agenda tonight, was to look at.
I don't have it all together though, because it is a voluminous amount of data.
Okay.
And what I didn't know is if you wanted to see just simply by grade level, classroom, I can drill down as low as you want without giving student names
Right.
and any identifiable information. How low do you want to go?
I prefer super granular and then, low level, just everything, and then we can summarize it in some kind of way but again, getting it out in a format that we can share with everybody ahead of time so that people have a chance to review it
Okay.
and come with ideas about what actions we can take.
Get it out before the next meeting.
Great. Ideally, within the next week or two, so that we could then summarize it, get it out to everybody, and so they can, is that reasonable to do it before, I don't know, the end of the month or something? I know you've got obviously many.
I think it's,
Which is next week.
which is next week.
Maybe the end of the first.
I was gonna say, I really appreciate Thanksgiving break to work on it.
Please don't.
Yeah.
I will,
Please take a
but-
break.
It's just trying to find time, and if there's time in there and I can pull,
Yeah, or if you just got the data, just dump me the data and I can play with it as well. You don't need to do all the grunt work. We do have a database administrator on our hands.
You might throw me the data too. I don't know, like,
Analyze that stuff
Yeah.
and, yeah.
I'll try to go down and like I said, again, if we have 8 teachers, it may be just teacher 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Yeah.
kindergarten, and then, you know,
Yeah.
what we're looking at is, as how many, do we want to look at, like, right now, as they were talking in their thing, those that are already at 10%,
Those who are already at 10%.
or do you want to
Yeah, I
go,
mean-
since that's 10% for the entire year? Do we want to look at anybody, since we're almost at the end of the first semester, anybody who's 9, you know, has hit the threshold of 9?
I think what
Or
would
is
be
over
interesting is just
4.
a list of every student when they're absent and what was the reason for it.
Is there a
This
reason for every single one?
random identity,
It's messy, depends on it depends on the school.
Yeah,
sorry, what was your question was?
I didn't know if when a student's absent, they always put a reason,
Okay.
or if there's only sometimes a reason.
Well, yeah, we'll take whatever they got, right?
Yeah. We'll at least get an idea for the.
Yeah, I would say don't spend too much time like trying to clean it up and whatever, we can. We got a million things in your plate, let us help, please.
I'm just trying to think, but that's 2,500 pieces of data.
I hear you, and.
So you're
I
not
assume-
like getting the book and like, oh my God, why'd I join this committee?
We can always just not do
Yeah.
anything with it too, but, I assume
We'll
part of
look
it
at
is,
that. We're gonna look at it and see
Okay.
what we can get together.
all right. Great. Okay, so moving on to with the agenda we've got here, we've got reviewing the 23-24 call-off reasons and attendance policies, and the call-off reasons is is with the data you're now gonna be working on.
Yep.
Attendance policies,
I can, if I can share again. I can go right into, and these are in. If you're on our website, if you ever wanna look. Can't sleep at night or something. You can go right into schools, you can click on, schools, click on district office. And we come right here to districts. And if you go to the Board of Education and click on them. Right here are all of our board policies. So anything that is associated with school code. Great part about this is you can just go into student attendance and type that in. And it's gonna bring up any policies related to student attendance. And a lot of what you see here is exactly the wording that you also see in all of our student handbooks, and I can show you where to find those as well. So if you take a look, usually if you're looking at students, then we go down to student. Attendance and truancy, right here, 770. So right here is, it talks about, you know, the fact that, and I think the reason you were asking, that Kelly earlier was because compulsory education starts at 6, and you were wondering if you could go to 5 and 4, which it's glad to hear that we can. So it talks about, you know, getting children enrolled. It talks about absency and truancy program. So here we have this. Nexus is brand new to us this year. We signed on with the ROE because, as we know, 9 times out of 10, especially in those that aren't driving yet or have someone who can drive them, if kids are absent, you know, you've got parents we've got to look at because they're not driving themselves and things like that. So right in here is our absency and truancy program, and I can make sure that this is uploaded with the information we we send you. But there are things that say what is allowed to be missed. What is not allowed to be missed? What do we do? Within 2 hours after the first class, we have to get a hold of a parent. In students K-8 or pre-K through 8, if they're absent. We have until 9:45 to get a hold of parents, to let them know. A lot of times it's just like, oh my gosh, we were up all night, forgot to call, so sorry. Talks about mental health days in here. So here is our policy that we follow, and you find in all of our handbooks. And again, I can print that whole thing out, and send it, but I showed you how to also look for it if you want to look at before then. Goes down. And that's our policy right there. If you want to look, if we want to go back, I can show you, if you want to look specifically like at your students, we can go into a school. I'll pick on Madison today. I click on Madison, I click on this, and let's see. Is it under parents and students, your handbook, Joey?
I believe so.
Nope.
Your
Student
documents?
links. No. Is it under documents?
That would be.
Jean Chiomiko. There it is, Madison Handbook, under, and that's where if you click on documents, that's where all of them will be. And so you can see, we gotta update your handbook there, Joey.
Or exchange the date.
So then you can go in, and these are the things that parents are, and it shows, right? Looks like page 13. Is that many pages, Joey?
Yes.
Scroll down to page 13. And there's all of our, and again, a lot of them you will see will mirror our board policy, because they tell you, put your board policy in your student handbooks. Is there anything else you wanted to see on that?
I think we wanted to just start to look at those with the idea that asking the question, in what way do our policies around attendance affect the attendance crisis in some kind of way? I think that maybe just knowing that that's where they are is going to be a good place for us to refer back to when we're thinking about.
I'll remember to just print out the one. It's easier that way.
Yeah.
Somebody can have it on their computer or print it out if they want. We'll put the board policy 770 in there.
Great. Any questions on that or on what the policies are or? Cool. Okay, and then the last bit there was discussing a project to focus on the 24-25 school year and how do we proceed. I think we already had that conversation, which was we'll meet a little bit sooner and get some information out to everybody in the coming weeks before the next meeting. Okay, and we've done number 6 as well, setting the agenda for next month, meeting every month at this point. Got something on the calendar.
Do we have emails for everybody? Because I was gonna say we can send out a calendar invite and perfect. We'll send out a calendar invite for the 10th.
Perfect. And well, whatever information we gather on this other stuff, we'll share it. Cool. All right. Great. Anything else before we adjourn? All right, any motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved.
All right.
I like you. I like you. I do have a question for you, Jen. I'm just trying to think that I remember. With your 5-year review with that school district, how did they pull the
Even just look at attendance data, I just looked at like culture survey data, parent survey data, census data. So kind of like triangulate something. So
Thanks for doing it.
this was at
That's-
excused.
A good start for whatever this is.
Sixth grade.
Cool.
Um,
So you're already impacted.
Yeah, that is like half my job is in half. Yeah. And prior to that, I've been at.
Disaggregating some of that data, so are there certain, like, we
guidance and
found.
adult education. So, like, a lot of the other services and things like that,
There.
Yeah, so when we get that data.
Right.
Yeah.
So we disaggregated by
Messy data.
Yes.
Yes.
male, female, so much disabilities, low income.
Yep.
and
Cool.
then
Good appreciation.
Sounds great. So yeah,
Yeah.
have a good one, guys.
race or ethnicity.
My son, I have one of my sons.
See you later.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, and soon I'm sure.
Okay. How's it?
That's great. Yeah, it just like, seems like everything else around you. It's the hot trend, it feels like, right?
Yes, yeah, we're really excited.
Whatever you're doing.
And thinking about this as a complex problem, that's why I don't
I
share.
think it reflects it free
Not just about attendance data,
Sells it, you think?
also about what.
Well, you know, we saw it earned and their tuition, so,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so they're earning.
Need an increase with their students.
But
that's what's
By the way,
clicking.
now we're.
Yeah.
Absenteeism within
But we
that.
want like,
And then they
for like,
according to this,
earned,
so
like.
it helps us to
we
better
don't just give it
understand
to
this.
them, like, you want the-
But I can understand it
So.
from the screen.
And
It'll help us
it's
to get like really deep down. on the rabbit hole.
Yeah, my son is, it's his
Like,
freshman year, so it's his first year doing it, so, yeah. So he did a couple things that he figured out that he definitely liked to do, I'm like, we're gonna do, and like found out that he's more hands-on, want to be doing something. So, yeah, it's definitely, it's gonna help, I think, get more ways than I want.
Yeah, exactly. My son, like,
Oh, sure.
wouldn't necessarily gravitate
You know
towards
what?
some of the
When
things
I
that he's good at.
always,
Right.
Oh, I need to do this.
when I always start before we drill down into.
Yeah.
Great. That's what's gonna be the incentive for you to do it.
Right,
Go for it.
exactly, yeah.
Super.
Paper and I. How do you say it? And then whatever their questions are, then I pull them for this. I don't put it.
Yep, thanks a lot.
That's your point. That is terrifying, but
Well, and then, yeah, I mean.
it's very overwhelming and you can
Yeah.
go. Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
I mean, you can get underwater with that pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And then also sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. I think we could figure it out.
And that worries me, because like you said, I mean, working teachers.
They never think, it's all.
They did great.
So you can even pull, you could just go in and, just start, before you start drilling down, you could just start with all those different sorts on the report card, you can put together some trend data. And then just post that and just ask people, what are you seeing? What do you have questions about? And then from those, if there's commonalities or things people are seeing or if there's common questions, then you can go back and say, let me pull that fourth grade data from last year and let's pull a record of all the, like what the reasons were for some of those, as opposed to starting with that.
I like that. It'll help us, yeah, because like you said, I think they're gonna find, we have found special, we'll get us stuff. But we just think post. Kids are gonna come all the time. And the least during that time, it just continues, so, are you okay with that? Of not going down into such specific data of trying to pull 2,500 students, starting with the more global data from school report card?
Yeah.
So where does that school report card data come?
You know.
State Board of Education, the IIRC.
Okay, what is this about reasons for absenteeism or?
So it has, it is the mothership of data,
Okay, including reasons for absenteeism or?
so